Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Adi, and today I have a team report from the Grand Challenge, and this time it is my own team. It's the team that I used, and it's really cool. I'm really happy with this team. I've been working on it since, basically since the World Championships, utilizing two of my favorite Pokemon, two Pokemon that were, I think, a little underutilized in this format, but were actually very strong. And yeah, especially in a closed team sheet format, I was really happy with how this team turned out. And since we got the new 25 world structure announced, I realized that these global challenges or grand challenges are basically worth regional championship level points, especially for top 32 finishes. And so since I wasn't going to Baltimore regionals, I decided that my regulation H preparation was going to be exclusively best of one closed team sheet until this grand challenge. And so I slowly built the sauciest team in this grand challenge. And, sadly, I did not get top 32. And in fact, I got 34th place, overall. I missed out on top 32 by 0.7 points. And that cost me 40 championship points. That's right. That could be the difference between going to Worlds and not going to Worlds. I think this payout structure is very silly. I was 31st place, with 1 minute left on the clock. But so obviously you're not going to queue up another game. But it turns out 3 people passed me, with their games going on, after the timer expired. And so I had no chance to react to that, even though I had 3 games remaining. So yeah, it's one of those things where you live and you learn. I didn't realize that was going to happen. I didn't realize that many people were going to be queuing at the very last minute. But I was 17th when I stopped with 2 hours left. And, there was a mad rush for that top 32 slots. I really think that they got to change the way that this championship point payout works. I think it's really toxic. It disincentivizes people from climbing up higher because there's so little incentive to push for a win, and it just incentivizes parking. Anyways, I digress. I'm going to complain a lot more on Tub Takes, which is already out at this point. So hopefully you have a chance to watch Tub Takes with me and with Nails, who ended up winning the Grand Challenge. But that was my court mandated bitching session out of the way. That's gonna get me demonetized. I was about to say the same thing again. All right. All right. Let's just talk about the team. Because it's a really cool team, and I did really well with it in testing. I was playing the best of one ladder a lot, and I had a lot of fun building this. And yeah, let's talk about it. So, I started out with I had a box of Pokemon in my team builder that was just like, these Pokemon have potential that look really cool. Let's try building around one of those. And I think the next grand challenge I will probably try building around another one of those Pokemon. But Serperior was the first one that I looked at, and it was a Pokemon that was hyped up a little bit in Regulation F when it came out. And I wanted to revisit some Pokemon that were released in Regulation E or F that were within the DLCs that were a little underpowered for the formats at the time, but I thought had the chance to be a lot stronger. Pokemon like Excadrill is another one that we've seen a little bit of, stuff like that. And so Serperior is a Pokemon that, of course, I know Jamie Boyt is a huge fan of. He had it really hyped it up for Regulation F, and it turns out that it was not very good in Regulation F. The speed tier is just not quite good enough in a format with things like Fluttermane in the format, and Iron Bundle in the format, and all those guys, and Urshifu. Actually Urshifu is pretty okay, but it just wasn't good enough in Regulation F, but it was a Pokemon that I wanted to revisit in this lower power level format because it has some really, really strong tools. And so, of course, the first thing I did was I went to Jamie Boyt's YouTube video. And by the way, speaking of Jamie Boyt, I ranked every single, or me and Alex ranked every single Pokemon in our tier list video, and Jamie Boyt out here in the comments saying, no one is using it. Are you sure you're not missing anyone? So I expected Jamie to pull up to the Grand Challenge with the saucy Serperior team, just like me. Except he didn't. Jamie, where you at? You better be in the comment section again. You better be pulling up to Dortmund with the spiciest Serperior team, or else I'm gonna be really disappointed, because are you sure you're not missing anyone? It sounds like I wasn't missing anyone. That's a shame. But I digress. Jamie obviously has won a regional with Serperior, one of the most creative team builders out there, and so I immediately went to his video for inspiration. How is he thinking that we should use this Pokemon? And of course, the standard set that you expect to see on Serperior is the Leaf Storm, Terra Blast, Stellar Terra set, because if you Stellar Terra, Terra Blast, normally your stats go down. With Contrary, your stats go up, right? So you'd expect that to be pretty good. And then Leaf Storm, of course, also boosts your stats. But it turns out that base 75 is not enough special attack. You can't really justify making that your primary sweeper, in my opinion, in this format. You certainly can't justify putting Stellar Terra on it and trying to Terra Blast through things. That +1 boost, you're not doing enough damage with a +1 boost. You just aren't. It's just, I mean, even at +2, you are really not doing nearly enough damage, especially since you have to be timid nature. The speed tier is really the reason to run this Pokemon. And so instead I was scrolling through the rest of the video, watching the rest of the video, and I think there's another set that he pointed out, which is the light screen set, the light screen reflect set. And that set is really cool because I was thinking about it and I was like, okay, well, it's the Grand Challenge, you know. I didn't realize it at the time, but you know, people are going to expect the Leaf Storm set, of course. And so maybe, just maybe, you get to subvert some expectations, run something a little unexpected, and that is dual screens, where you actually have a really nice speed tier. You are one of the fastest users of dual screens. I know Dragapult is a little faster, but you obviously really want to get your screens off before your opponent's attack. Prankster being really good for that, but also just having a naturally fast Pokemon is good for that. And then similarly, you get to Glare. I think Glare is the best move on this Pokemon because it's 100% accurate Thunder Wave, essentially, but also, especially now with the results of Baltimore Regionals, Garchomp was everywhere at Baltimore Regionals. And getting to paralyze Garchomps and other ground types is really, really cool. So I thought this was the reason to run this Pokemon, more of as a support Pokemon than as a sweeper. It just wasn't good enough as a sweeper. It wasn't doing enough damage as a sweeper. But at the same time, you know, you might be asking, okay, well, why not use Grimmsnarl or Klefki or Sableye or all the other like dual screen setters that we have that also have Thunder Wave? Well, the answer is because those Pokemon are very passive. They are very easy to ignore. And a lot of times against Grimmsnarl, you can just sit there and pretend it doesn't exist. And you're going to, and you just target down the partner. But with Serperior, you give it one turn where you ignore it, and it clicks Leaf Storm. And the first Leaf Storm doesn't do all that much damage. But the second Leaf Storm, now you're at +2. Now you actually are doing damage like a respectable Pokemon. And if you're at +4, or especially if they set up Grassy Terrain for you with Rillaboom all over the format at +2 Grassy Terrain or +4, you are like actually hitting really hard. And so, and you're reasonably bulky because you set up screens. And so all of a sudden, this Pokemon turns into a really, really powerful option. And so that's why I ran the dual screen set. It's the I think it was the least passive dual screen setter in the format. And I guess Ninetales also has a case for that, but Ninetales has its own set of problems, namely that I really want to set up screens into the rain teams that were everywhere, and Ninetales can't do that nearly as effectively. So Serperior, all of a sudden, I found its niche. And so the EV spread, obviously a little different from Boyd's video, but I just didn't think that special attack was something that I needed to prioritize. I need to be max speed. The main thing about the speed tier is that you outspeed Mousehold. And then you also have a point of speed creep extra. There's no reason to run 244 speed. You might as well just max it out in case other people are trying to just barely outspeed Mousehold. It's pretty valuable to be faster than them, to get to glare them. So just max speed and then max HP basically with the 444. I get an extra point out there. So pretty straightforward there. And then once I realized, okay, I'm running Screen Serperior, what am I putting next to it, right? That's the thing. What are you trying to set up for with your screens? And Ceruledge is the Pokemon that I chose. And the reason for that is actually kind of process of elimination. The two Pokemon that I think really, really take advantage of screens the best and set up either Bulk Up or Calm Mind or Quiver Dance in this format are, well, Volcarona, of course, is awesome. You might look at Ceruledge and say, well, why are you not setting up the other really strong fire type? And then Annihilate is the Bulk Up user that everyone expects to use. And also, again, why are you using why are you using Ceruledge over the other Ghost type that can click Bulk Up? And the answer to that is they are both weak to flying. And if you are using Serperior, you are already inherently weak to flying types a little bit, right? You potentially, even if you set up a screen, they can potentially just hit you really hard and knock it out. And so you don't want both your Pokemon on the field to be weak to the same typing. And so Serperior enabling a Ceruledge, all of a sudden you have the grass fire combination that's so powerful. Serperior can threaten things like Primarina that might be annoying for Ceruledge on the field. But unlike Volcarona, you don't share that flying weakness that can be so devastating, especially in this format and how it's developed. So that was why I chose to use Ceruledge as my setup mon of choice. Actually, I have 3 setup mons on this team, but Ceruledge was the first one that I put on the team. So this is a Pokemon that I had used back in Reg D or Reg E, I think. Another Pokemon that a little underpowered in that format. With Urshifu in the format, critting through your bulk up boost, it's a little less strong. But I won a local with Ceruledge that me and Rajan had built together, and it was really cool. And I was like, okay, well, I want to look at this Pokemon as well. And so it's also in my box of cool Pokemon to try out. It did well in one of the Victory Road Tours as well. I had already been on it a little bit, but I was really excited to see other people experimenting with it. And yeah, this is almost the exact same set I think I ran back in Regulation E. And it's Bulk Up, Bitter Blade, Poltergeist, Protect. You can also potentially run Shadow Sneak over Poltergeist, but since I have an Indeedee on the team, obviously I am running Poltergeist. You do need the Clear Amulet. You obviously need to have some resistance to just getting Intimidate cycled by Incineroar. So Clear Amulet was kind of a natural choice there. And then, yeah, it's cool because it's got Flash Fire too. So on top of not sharing that flying weakness with Serperior, the other fire type, Volcarona, is neutral against fire, and there's some strong fire types like Typhlosion out there in this format, and so you don't actually want to take any hits from them. And so by Terra Darking, you get to basically wall Typhlosion. You get to basically wall all of Psyspam. Not all of Psyspam. They have Gallade, but just forcing them to bring Gallade is often a concession that they're not super happy about. This Terra Dark Ceruledge just kind of walls out a decent chunk of the format, and if people aren't expecting it, they are going to get really caught off guard. I entirely wall Volcarona is also really big, right? So you set up and their opponent's Volcarona sets up, and Volcarona set up being such a common archetype, well, guess what? You can just ignore the Volcarona, and you can say, my setup mon's going to KO all of your partner Pokemon, and your setup mon can KO all of my partner Pokemon, and I'm going to 1v1 you. But at any point, I can just Bitter Blade your Volcarona, and it's going to go down. But you have no way of touching this Ceruledge. I straight up, this happened in the Global Challenge. I just straight up got to ignore a couple of Volcaronas when they were foolish enough to bring it. Again, Typhlosion was a big one. Armarouge was a big one. I had a funny match against a Psychic Seed Armarouge, and so I couldn't hit them because Poltergeist doesn't work and Bitter Blade doesn't work, and they couldn't hit me. I had to play really. It was a really fun game. I had to play really creatively and managed to beat it with my Hydreigon instead, and beat the rest of the team with my Ceruledge. But yeah, it's a cool Pokemon. It definitely is more exploitable in Open Team Sheet, where you know it has Poltergeist, and maybe you can figure out a way to abuse that. You know it has Clear Amulet, so maybe you're not bringing your Incineroar into it. And but yeah, it's in closed team sheet especially. I thought it was very, very strong as a choice. People weren't really sure what it's going to do. The EV spread is a jump point in attack, max HP. The speed tiers, it hits 107 speed. So if in a world where I manage to glare a Dragapult, if it doesn't just U-turn and Oko my Serperior, which is why you can't really bring it into Dragapult, but in theory, if you manage to glare a Dragapult, you will outspeed it. 107 is also just a pretty solid speed tier, and as you can see, there isn't much speed investment needed. So yeah, I figured that was a good speed number to hit. And then yeah, the rest of the moveset is pretty straightforward. But this was actually the maybe the highlight of the team. In practice, I was bringing Serperior a lot, and Ceruledge felt like a matchup Pokemon. And then in the Grand Challenge, I did not bring Serperior as much as I would have wanted to. The matchups didn't quite line up, I guess. And instead, Ceruledge was the Pokemon that I brought all the time. Like, I was bringing it almost every game. It definitely overachieved in the Grand Challenge, and so maybe that's something to look out for. It maybe just have a really solid place in the metagame right now. And so moving on from the Ceruledge, the next two Pokemon were Indeedee and Sneasler, and this was the core four that I had started out with. I don't remember exactly how I came to the conclusion that Indeedee Sneasler was the play. I think Indeedee makes a lot of sense. Again, if you look at this tier list video, one of the more controversial takes, let's pop over to the ending, I guess, is that I was a big proponent of Indeedee being in S tier. Now, obviously, this is contextual, right? First off, this was before the format really started, but also, and it was a little bit of a hot take, I'll admit, but I really think this Pokemon is really good because it enables one of the strongest teams in Psyspam. It enables Sneasler in a way that is really unique, and especially with screens up, what I found is that if you put Sneasler is not a very bulky Pokemon, but if you put a light screen up and you put a Psychic Seed on it, all of a sudden it actually has a decent amount of special bulk, and so it can start tanking hits that people don't really want it to take. And so that was a really cool little combo with that Indeedee pretty much exclusively enables. And then on top of that, the Indeedee is just a redirector that does really, really well into mouse ape stuff, right? It stops beat up, it stops rage fist, and it pairs really well with Ceruledge because of the ghost resistance, or ghost immunity rather. Obviously they're both weak to dark, which is a little like it's not ideal. And so that is, I think, part of why I put the Sneasler on the team. I don't remember exactly why I put the Sneasler on the team. But yeah, the Sneasler is on the team partially because it is it just has awesome offensive typing. I mean, it's crazy with close combat. Dire Claw and Throat Chop is really incredible in terms of beating all the things that Ceruledge loses to, right? So Primarina is a big problem for Ceruledge, and you just Dire Claw it to the point where people are running Terra Poison to avoid Dire Claw. And all the dark types are really annoying. King Gambits, Hydreigon, all those guys are really annoying. And so you get to close combat those guys and get rid of them. And so this and so the Sneasler set is something that I saw Niku Alex use, an Italian player, Alessia Fusco. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, but I saw him using this Sneasler set in a Limitless tour, the early on in the format, Swords Dance, Throat Chop, Terra Dark, and I was like, you know what? Let's try it out. This model looks really cool. If it doesn't work, I can take it off the team. And again, I thought it was really impressive with light screen up, with light screen up and Psychic Seed. It's a tank. It's kind of a tank. It was really cool. And so I think that in hindsight, I would not run Swords Dance. I think that most of the Terra Dark Throat Chop Sneaslers in the GC had Protect over Swords Dance, and I clicked Swords Dance exactly. I clicked it twice. I didn't need to click the second time. I would have won the game anyways. But I clicked it once against a Grimmsnarl team that was very passive, and so I just got to lead Indeedee Sneasler and click Swords Dance on their turns where they weren't doing anything. And so that is like one reason to use it, but I think I would have been better off running Protect on the Sneasler if I'm being honest. I think there were a couple games where making sure my opponent couldn't target it down and stalling out something like Tailwind, just living an extra turn would have been really good. Being able to prevent a fake out, for example, would have been really strong. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe something that I should have considered a little stronger, a little more, just because it is such an important part of the Rillaboom matchup at times. And yeah, being able to protect on their fake out and then threaten them would have been really cool. So I think in hindsight, I would have done that. But Swords Dance did come up a couple times, and it came up a lot more in testing. The Terra Dark Throat Chop set is something that you should have seen in the Grand Challenge. I think it was very common. And notably, what I liked about it is that this is the mon that I like the most into Rain. The Indeedee Sneasler Psychic Seed combo is really strong, especially with light screen up, because all of a sudden the Ursaluna is not really a Pokemon. You can set up light screen and it doesn't do very much damage. Obviously, body press, you are not taking that much from body press with the poison typing. You are not really appreciating it. It doesn't have much of a physical defense stat. But if they're clicking unboosted body press, that's fine. And really, the goal is to not hit it and leave it with the +0 defense stat, because that way you can close combat it and get rid of it at the end of the game and kind of ignore it up until that point. And then because you have Throat Chop and you have Terra Dark, you are also really effectively dealing with the Bascule Legion that a lot of these teams have. And so in practice, I found that leading Serperior, setting up light screen, and having Indeedee Sneasler in back was really, really powerful into most of the Rain teams in practice. In the actual tournament, the Rain players, I think, have gotten better. They stopped leading Ursaluna to me, which is what they're supposed to do. But in practice, they just kept leading Pallet Ursaluna, and I kept farming them. And then as people started to lead like Bascule Legion and exert a lot more pressure, that was a lot trickier to deal with. So I had to make that adjustment kind of on the fly. Started bringing Hydreigon more into Rain, for example, because people kept leading Bascule Legion into me. And so the Rain matchup I thought was one of the better matchups in the team in practice, but in the global challenge itself, Rain players were much better, and I had to adapt on the fly, and it was more of an even matchup. And so maybe something to workshop again as I go, if you want to iterate on this team. Yeah, that's something to maybe think about a little more and workshop again. But yeah, so with Sneasler, some of the other notable things about this set, I talked about Terra Dark Unburdened, but the one thing that what I didn't touch on is that I'm Adamant Sneasler, and I think a lot of people are Jolly, but Adamant Max Attack has some calcs that are really, really important. And so I'm just going to list them off. I'll put them on screen too. The Ursaluna, if they're unboosted, close combat is a roll to knock out if they're just max HP for defense. That's really nice. Obviously, ideally, you are going to manage to Helping Hand or something like that to guarantee it, but it's really nice to have that opportunity to knock out. against Garchomp, this is the one that came up the most. Helping Hand Close Combat is a favorable role to knock out Garchomp. I did that so often. People will set up Tailwind and just put their Garchomp next to it and think, oh, I'm going to sweep the Sneasler up. But you are 1 point faster than Garchomp naturally. That's what the 236 speed is for. And you just Helping Hand Close Combat them, and I think all three that I faced went down. It is a roll. In theory, they could live it. If they have a little bit of bulk investment, they will survive it, and you will be very sad. But this was my most common way of dealing with Garchomp the entire Grand Challenge, and it always worked. It was great. So it was a little cheesy, but that's the best one for you, right? You're allowed to cheese people a little bit. And so, yeah, Adamant had those two rolls. I think there were some rolls into like Goldengo with Terra Dark Throat Chop or stuff like that that also came up. So, yeah, Adamant was actually really important. And when you are Psychic Seed on Burden, you don't really need to go Jolly. There's not a ton of reason for you to go Jolly. The one thing that did come up was that I got outsped in Tailwind by a Mousehold, and that's the one really annoying speed tier that you miss out on. And then also, I guess opposing Sneasler, you can lose the speed tie against them. But actually, what I found is that I was winning the speed tie against most Sneasler that I was facing that were even like Grassy Seed for whatever reason, which I thought was really strange because you really got to outspeed Garchomp, right? Like that's like the bare minimum. Garchomp Tailwind is so common. So yeah, I didn't really plan for opposing Sneasler when I was thinking about my own Sneasler, but yeah, no, this set was awesome. Maybe run max speed and drop to 4 HP, but yeah, that's the only thing that I Protect. I think I would consider changing. But this Terra Dark Psychic Seed Sneasler was really the MVP of the entire run. Indeedee Sneasler in back would clean up so many games that I had no business winning. Even if I got turn 1 wrong, it just bring in Sneasler, switch in Indeedee, boom, 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 and you win the game a lot of times. It was really strong. And then, yeah, like I mentioned, Indeedee, pretty straightforward. I did try a lot of things. So obviously you have to run Follow Me. You have to run an attacking move, which in this case was Psychic. Psychic was really good because it OHKOs opposing Sneasler, which is the highest damage move that you can do. It's good damage into Pelipper, it's good damage into Ursaluna, it's good damage into Annihilate, right? Like, I think Psychic is the move to run. Dazzling Gleam, I played around Dazzling Gleam when I had a Hydreigon on field, but I never saw anyone click it against me, so yeah, that was good. I had a male Indeedee click it against me, but honestly, I played more male Indeedee than female Indeedee now that I think about it. There's a lot of them. I digress. Follow Me and Psychic were pretty much givens. And then Helping Hand, like I mentioned, Helping Hand was an important part of my Sneasler game plans, so I did need to keep it. I also had, oh man, there was a game where I think a +4 Leaf Storm in grassy terrain with Helping Hand OHKO'd a Rillaboom and won me a game early on in the Grand Challenge. And so that was also really cool. And so, yeah, Helping Hand was absolutely invaluable. I absolutely needed it. And also, notably, if Dindozo go bulkier, then sometimes you need a Helping Hand to knock it out with Draco Meteor, whereas if they are faster, then you just knock it out normally, and you don't need to follow me. So you need to figure out the speed tiers a little bit with that. And then the last move I had a lot of thoughts about because I tried a skill swap as a Dozo matchup. You could skill swap away Unaware, live an attack, and then your Serperior could, use its plus whatever boosts into it to knock it out. I had Trick Room, obviously, that's the default one. But Protect is so good. I think that if you're using a redirection Pokemon and you don't have Protect, Amoonguss is a special exception, I think. But Protect is so good on every redirection Pokemon because it makes it so your opponent has to play mind games. You have to, especially if you have the type synergy, right? Like against Sneasler, they don't want to click Dark type moves, but against Indeedee, they do want to click Dark type moves. Against stuff like that, you really want to put your opponent in a really awkward spot and have to force them to make a lot of decisions that are really difficult to make. And so I would click Protect all the time, and no one respected Protect because everyone looks at Indeedee and says it has Follow Me, Helping Hand, attacking move, Trick Room. And maybe it has a flex move. I saw a lot of Imprison Indeedee, for example, that don't have Protect. And so against things like Goldengo lead, right? If they lead something like Talonflame Goldengo, almost guaranteed they're going to either taunt the Indeedee or they're going to just click Tailwind, make it rain. And if you just Protect on it, and you have a Ceruledge on the field, for example, you are tanking the Make It Rain, and you are getting rid of their boost, and then your DD is at full health, and it can redirect some attacks later on in the game. So things like that were really, really valuable. I just think Protect was so good on this Pokemon. Then it's the Grand Challenge, right? So you don't have to run safety goggles like you do in Open Team Sheet as much. So I put a Citrus Berry on it. It's just like, I think one of the better users of Citrus Berry. And then I ran Terra Grass because sometimes you do need to redirect attacks from Amoonguss. I'll talk about my game plan into Amoonguss Balance a little later, but Yeah, I think that you need to respect it a little bit, but not too much. Citrus Berry is really good. It comes up a lot. The one thing I did wrong was that the EV spread is bad. The EV spread, I had Calm because I was like, I'm just going to maximize my my overall bulk, right? And so Calm 36 is just a jump point in special defense. The 20 speed is actually pretty relevant. It's people like to run minus speed Indeedee to underspeed Rillaboom if you both lead it, but that's just so uncommon. Especially in a best of one format, right? People aren't leading their Rillaboom into your Indeedee teams very often. And as a result, what I found was that this is a 108 speed Indeedee, which is, again, theoretically, if you glare a Dragapult, you could outspeed it. But really what it's for is that it speed checks for the Ceruledge. And so you set up Psychic Terrain, and if you, and then you can click Psychic or whatever. But if you are faster than your opponent with Indeedee, you are probably faster than him with Ceruledge. And there's a lot of Pokemon in that speed range that you want to be careful of, because everything can run 107, 108 speed. A lot of like Pokemon like Primarina can go slower or they can go faster. Even like Ursaluna can go slower or can go faster, right? So knowing that speed tier is sometimes very valuable when you're just playing that information game in best of one. And so yeah, that was really important. But the rest of the EV spread, I would change to bold. The main thing that I didn't fully register was that you don't live Population Bomb from Mousehold, even with Citrus Berry. And so, or you have a chance to live it. And I did live one, but I went down to another one. And then the third guy who Population Bombed my Indeedee just Terra Normaled it to guarantee the KO. Fair enough. But yeah, I think it's an unfavorable roll to survive that, which is a little annoying. And so I would definitely say if you were running this team, run bold Indeedee. It is better. But you know what? Actually, I did also have a game where I lost, but I should have won. If I had known that my Indeedee would have lived a Weather Ball from the Pelipper. It lived on like 2, and that's only because it was Calm. But I didn't play like I was going to survive the attack when I did. And so that was a mistake on my part. But so there are some applications for just having the general bulk. But Population Bomb from Mousehold is the one place where with Citrus Indeedee, I didn't run that calc ahead of time. I should have run that calc ahead of time. It was very stupid of me not to. I didn't have a problem with Population Bomb in general, right? I have the Terra Steel Hydreigon, I have the Ceruledge, which is immune to it. The Ursaluna can tank one, and also can Terra Ghost. And then the Serperior outspeeds it and can glare it or can set up Reflect, so you can live those attacks a little more effectively. But yeah, I think that was actually important enough into my Mouse Ape game plans that I should have ran bold in hindsight. That was another one of the changes that I would have made in hindsight. Whoops. Oh well. But yeah, the rest of the moves, very, very important. Again, protect, the most important move on the moveset. Well, other than follow me. Other than follow me, helping hand and psychic, protect's the most important move on the moveset. And then, yeah, Terra Grass comes up quite a bit against Rain too. I would have to Terra Grass sometimes into Basket Legions just to survive the attack there, or into Pelipers that always Weather Ball you, stuff like that comes up. And it also comes up, of course, into Amoonguss. So, yeah, though that's why the Indeedee is the way it is. Very, very strong Pokemon. I still think it's one of the best Pokemon in the format in terms of just how many different Pokemon that it enables. So those were the core 4. Those were the 4 that I started the team around. And then I moved on and I tried a lot of different things in these last 2 slots. And I tried, I thought that since I had Serperior and I had Ceruledge, I really wanted a water type in that slot. I had tried Blood Moon, the Life Orb set, for a little bit, and I also tried Primarina in that slot, and I tried Quackable in that slot. I was really high on Quackable for a while. I saw Sempra got top 4 in the Grand Challenge with Quackable, maybe second place. I'm not sure. But so I thought that Pokemon was really good, but it wasn't quite doing quite enough. And then I got sent a replay from a couple different people who saw that there was a Serperior team at the very top of the best of 1 ladder on Pokemon Showdown. They were running the Stellar Terra Blast set, but they also had a Assault Vest Ursaluna on the team. They had a couple other cool choices like Heatwave and Arcanine that I thought was pretty cool as their fire type of choice. But yeah, they were running a they were running an Assault Vest Ursaluna, and that was my first exposure to this set. And so I was like, all right, I tried Ursaluna. I thought it made a lot of sense in theory, but in practice, it wasn't quite pulling its weight. With the Life Orb, it kind of works against the bulk that you get from screens, so it didn't really make sense. But with Assault Vest, maybe it does make sense. It just has a lot of stats, and this is the special defense stat is the one stat it doesn't have. Assault Vest kind of cleans it up, and with Light Screen, all of a sudden it can maybe tank some more attacks with Reflect. It can tank some more attacks. Yeah, let's try it out. And when I tried it out, it clicked immediately, and it took the team to another level. It really felt like this was the Pokemon that made the team click. Now, Assault Vest Ursaluna at the time was not all that common, but I saw it and I tried it and I immediately thought it was really good. And then I was talking to Alex, and he said that he was watching a lot of Japanese streams to get ready for the Grand Challenge, Best of One streams. And he said that, the Japanese players, they just play around it like it's normal to see on Best of One ladders, so it must be pretty common on Battle Stadium. And Cedric Bernier, Talon VGC, who also plays a lot of Battle Stadium for his YouTube channel, he also said that, yeah, I think that Assault Vest is the way to go. I think it's really strong, and it's very common in this Best of One format. And so I wasn't sure. Actually, I alluded to this in our Baltimore recap, Tub Takes, that, I was saying there's only one Blood Moon Ursaluna in top cut, and it got 21st. It lost in top 32. And I was saying, I think people are using Ursaluna wrong. And I was alluding to the fact that the right way to use it is Assault Vest. And of course, Nails ended up winning the Grand Challenge with Assault Vest Ursaluna. This was a lot more common in the Grand Challenge. But I think this is a really strong set. I think we're going to see it a lot at Dortmund. I think people who maybe thought they had the meta call hidden, I guess, now you're going to see it a lot more of it. So definitely something that I think is going to be a lot more common in the metagame. This is the right way to use Ursaluna, and especially with screens, it is a house. So yeah, let's talk about it. So Assault Vest, like I said, really made it. What I liked about it was that you lead it with Serperior, and if you set up a screen, it's basically unkillable. Especially since people try to abuse Primarina into it, right? And Serperior is so good into Primarina. A lot of people would immediately Terra their Primarina into Terra Grass, fearing a Leaf Storm and a Blood Moon or something like that. And I would just click Light Screen, and all of a sudden, like, you think you're doing damage with Hyper Voice, and actually you're doing no damage with Hyper Voice. And so, yeah, that was really cool. Notably, also about Serperior and Blood Moon, because people are so likely to protect on turn 1 if you lead Ursaluna, because they just expect you to click Blood Moon. And also because you don't get a Leaf Storm boost if you do that, right? And so everyone expects to protect there, or everyone protects in that situation. And yeah, so you just get to click screen for free. Even if you click Blood Moon and you whiff into a protect, it's usually a free turn that Serperior gets, and then giving Serperior free turns is really, really scary. It's not something that you want to do, because Glare is valuable, screens are valuable, Leaf Storm is valuable. This guy, I talked about Serperior already, but yeah, so I thought the Blood Moon was the perfect pairing for Serperior. I thought it made the team really tick. And so the 4 moves are pretty standard on Assault Vest. Vacuum Wave, I think, is the de facto move of choice on this Assault Vest as the 4th move. I actually tested out a few other things because it does have anti-synergy with Indeedee. And I did notice the anti-synergy a lot. I wanted to Vacuum Wave a lot more things than I could have. Goldengo is a really big one that Vacuum Wave hits, where you can Earth Power it and you can miss out on a KO because they're bulky. And then you Vacuum Wave it and you knock it out because you can hit the Ghost types with Mind's Eye, and it's a Steel type too, so it's super effective. So that was really cool. Vacuum Waving Pelipper's so that we're down to Sash was really good. You can Blood Moon Vacuum Wave them and just get rid of them. Vacuum Waving Argaludons just to do the last little bit of chip damage is really nice. Vacuum Waving Dragonites so you can break Multiscale was a pretty cool application of it. And those are all like flying types, right? Pelipper and Dragonite and stuff. So even with Psychic Terrain, it came up. I actually was testing, the first thing I tested was Terra Fairy Moonblast, because I hate the anti-synergy, right? So I tested out Terra Fairy Moonblast. I tested out Snarl as a way to hedge against Psyspam before I turned it to Terra Dark Ceruledge. And yeah, no, Vacuum Wave just kept coming up for me, kept coming up for me, even though I have the Indeedee, even though I bring the Indeedee next to the Ursaluna so often. Vacuum Wave was still one of the best moves on the moveset. Really, this is just the strongest way to run Ursaluna. I think we're going to see a lot more of it at Dortmund, at Louisville. This is a set that is not best of 1. This is a best of 3 translating set that is really good. And I think that, I just kind of got to pick up on it a little ahead of time because of my information network, because people were telling me about it. And yeah, I got to use it for to a lot of success. So with that, yeah, the EV spread, this hits 91 speed. Actually, if you watch my team building video, this is almost exactly the same EV spread that I had in my team building video. But so the only difference is I took a point out of HP and I put it in speed. And that is sort of speed creep, but the real reason for that is one, actually, there's only really one reason for it, which is that if you have a 181 speed Serperior and you glare something, the fastest thing you can glare is also 181 speed or 180 speed. Obviously, Mousehold is the threshold at 179 speed. I mentioned that in the team report if you have Tailwind. But in theory, if you have Glare at 181 speed, there are some Pokemon that hit 180 speed that, especially like Pokemon that could go faster, that wants to outspeed Mousehold, for example, and just want to not run any more speed investment. Don't really respect Serperior. Hey, that's your mistake, man. But you can Glare them, and then you want to outspeed those Pokemon as well with Ursaluna. I think that's really important. And so knowing that anything that I glared first with Serperior, I would also outspeed with Ursaluna is really, really good information. And so, yeah, I just put the extra point in speed. Also speed creep, because 90 is a really common speed number, so 91 is a pretty cool number to hit. And then the rest is in bulk. The HP is actually a grassy terrain number. It's 208 HP, which is a multiple of 16. So if they put up grassy terrain, you will get an extra point of healing. So I would not go less than 156 HP. Although actually maybe I would, because I kind of regretted not having the max special attack. There were definitely some ranges where I was looking at it and I was like, ugh, I would really like Vacuum Wave to do a little more damage here. There's some rolls into like Goldengo where maybe you get a little more damage off with Earth Power that you needed. So I would consider running max special attack on this guy instead, and maybe reducing the HP or reducing these. Reducing the HP. I don't think I would reduce speed at all. I think the speed tier is too important. So that's another consideration. But also the overall bulk was really nice. You just live a lot of attacks with screens and with the Salt Vest that you don't expect to live, and you live a lot of attacks on low HP. And then if you live an attack on low HP, even if you're not the fastest thing on the field, having Vacuum Wave lets you click buttons still and break sashes and whatnot. So I like this. This set was great. This set was excellent. And then last but not, one more thing is that Terra Ghost. Terra Ghost is I think Nails ran Terra Normal on his. I thought Terra Normal was more common on the Assault Vest sets, but I liked Terra Ghost because fighting coverage is everywhere, and I have a lot of fighting weeks, or I have a lot of Terra Darks, and then you have fighting weeks as a result, right? So I didn't have a lot of fighting resists, is really what it came down to. Sneasler is only a fighting resist in name only, and so it's really just Ceruledge, which is, cool synergy, right? But it was awkward at times to deal with fighting types. And so being Terra Ghost, being able to deal with like Body Press from Archaludon was really good. Just being able to tank that and then Earth Power them back was really valuable. Close Combat from Sneasler was really valuable. Again, Earth Powering them back was a really strong interaction that I thought was really good. And no one expects it. Everyone expects Terra Normal. So that part was also just a very powerful part of the team that I think people weren't expecting. Is probably less good in open team sheet, because Terra Normal does get you some calcs that you really need, but Terra Ghost was cool, and then also it makes the Ursaluna purple, which is thematically correct for the rest of the team. Very, very important. Sadly the Serperior is the only non-purple Pokemon on this team, and Serperior is royal, right? It's the royal Pokemon, and so it is purple is fit for royalty. It's the royal color, so it works out like that. And it's draped in purple in some ways. I like the theme as well. So the Terra Ghost made a lot of sense on the Pokemon. Just again, as a fighting immunity, came up a decent amount. Also, you're fake out immune, which means that if you can't protect and you Terra Ghost into Rillabooms and they try to fake you out, that's also a lot of value at times. I thought Terra Ghost came up a lot for me. This is probably one of the Pokemon that I Terra'd the most often in my run. I Terra'd the Ceruledge a lot when I brought it, and I Terra'd the Hydreigon a lot when I brought it. But other than that, the Ursaluna was the Pokemon that I probably Terra'd the most, and I brought it the most. So, yeah. Well, then finally, the last Pokemon on the team is sort of a matchup Pokemon, but it came a lot more than I thought it would. This is a Pokemon that I put on the team initially so the Hydreigon is the Pokemon that I put on the team. And I put it on the team initially for Dindozo. I needed a Dindozo matchup. And in particular, people were running things like Primarina or Clear Smog Amoonguss, and that's fine, but that's getting rid of their boosts. If you get rid of their boosts after they, take a knockout with Dozo and they do 80% to another Pokemon, the Dozo has done its job. Like you need to set yourself up to win the game when you KO'd Dozo, is the way I see it. And so this was a way that I thought I could do it while also covering for what I thought was a bad matchup in Ursaluna size spam. As you can see, this team does not actually do a lot into Ursaluna. It has one ground resist, and that is a Serperior, which is, again, is not going to sit in front of a Ursaluna and really trade damage with it very effectively. Actually, I won a league challenge this weekend as well with a Serperior, a different variant of the Serperior team, and I won the league challenge. I went 2-1, and there were 5 people who went 2-1, and I had the highest resistance. So, and I got one on opponent's opponent. So, like, I wouldn't actually recommend this in open team sheet. That was after going 2-3 to League Cup with the Serperior set, so it underperformed in open team sheet for sure. But yeah, and Ursaluna was the big problem point, I think, for me. And just not having the I needed a ground immunity. I needed a ground immunity really, really badly. And so Terra Steel Hydreigon is a Pokemon that kind of sort of walls Ursaluna. You put Reflect up and it does pretty good into it. And then it also is a Dindozo answer. And so it kind of fit the two things that I wanted to do, where it helped against Psy Spam Ursaluna, which at the time of building was the most common Ursaluna team. And it helped against Dindozo. And it turns out it also helped a lot more. It was randomly pretty good against Rain, right? It does actually do quite well into Basket Legion. It's very good into all the Sun teams. And it's Ceruledge is also covers a lot of this ground. I think there's some overlap there that maybe was a little bit of an inefficiency. But yeah, it just kind of checked a lot of the boxes, and then I ended up bringing it a lot. Also, it outspeeds Goldengo, and Goldengo is just the most common Pokemon in the format. And so you outspeed it, and you Dark Pulse it, and it's pretty cool. But yeah, it was supposed to be a matchup mom, but it ended up coming a lot more than I thought it would. So that was pretty cool to see. Terra Steel does do some pretty cool things. It walls Garchomp, which is not the other ground type in the format, right? And so if they run, Dragon, ground, sometimes rock coverage, you entirely wall them. You take no damage from them. You get to set up on them, basically, which is pretty cool. You also do pretty well into the Dragonites, although you do take a lot from Low Kick. If the Choice Band Low Kick, you are just going down, I think. So it's not always perfect, but it's quite good into that the Garchomps that we're picking up in usage as well. And yeah, Focus Energy, meaning that you can ignore boosts, was cool because you can ignore like Psychic Seed from Indeedee, and you set up on it, and then you get to knock it out. You get to ignore boosts from Volcarona at times. Again, I thought I had a pretty good Volcarona matchup with Ceruledge, but this is an added boost. Yeah, just any random like Combine Mons you can ignore boost from. I tested Terra Steel with Flash Cannon for a little bit because you do struggle with Ninetales. It's cool that you wall Ninetales and then you don't do anything to it, and that was a little awkward. You eventually just get frozen and lose. And so that's a consideration. But I found that in order to actually like execute the game plan into Dindozo, which is like the primary reason it's on the team, you do need Protect. You need to be able to reposition your Indeedee next to it at times so you can actually set up. And so you get to steal one turn, ideally, with Terra Stealing, when they always order up into the Hydreigon and you Terra Steal and you switch in the Indeedee. And then hopefully you can... that's enough, but sometimes you did need Protect just to maneuver around enough and to play around, maybe you have a Hydreigon in the field and they haven't switched into Tatsugiri yet, and you don't know what they're going to do. And so baiting that out is you kind of need to do it at times. And so yeah, Protect was invaluable, but I also understand that Flash Cannon definitely had some applications that could have been good. The Scope Lens, Focus Energy, like I mentioned, you just crit through the boost that is so strong. Draco Meteor, Dark Pulse, mandatory moves on the stat. Draco Meteor you get to ignore. The stat drops, and then Dark Pulse is so good. You need the dark coverage. And steel coverage would have been nice too. You could argue for fire coverage as well. I thought the team at the end of the day kind of had enough for all those Pokemon, and yeah, it just really what it really needed was these four moves did exactly what it needs to do. Is I guess what I'll say. The one thing that again with was it Dawei's team, I think, had the Terra Fairy Ursaluna with screens. And so that is one place where you actually really did kind of want Flash Cannon when they Terra Fairy the Ursaluna. But I don't think that came up for me in the Global Challenge. It did happen in my... it did come up in my tournament, my League Challenge experience, where I did ran a different Hydreigon, I think. Yeah, I did run a different Hydreigon, but yeah, that's one place where you do kind of want Flash Cannon. I don't know. It's got 4-move slot syndrome, right? You got to make the decision. And then I think I changed the EV spread at the very last minute. I was timid with just max speed, max special attack until I realized that you're not actually outspeeding Dindozos. And so I switched over to Modest, where I thought that was getting the rolls on Dindozo a little better. If they have some bulk investment, then you actually do need to be Modest to get those KOs. The bulk investment is pretty cool. I don't remember exactly what the 36 HP, 20 defense was for, but I had a calc in mind, and so I ended up running that spread. And yeah, it's again with screens up, it's really nice. You just get to live attacks randomly, and especially into Ursaluna, you kind of do need a little bit of bulk. And I think I did live some games on very low HP and won the games because of it. So I actually really appreciated the a little bit of added bulk. It did come up for me. Into again, Basket Legion is going to wave crash you, living those attacks. Pelipper, you can switch into Weather Ball a little more effectively, and Hurricanes with light screen up. So stuff like that, it was pretty cool too. So the Hydreigon honestly overachieved. It was a matchup mon, but into the field that is the Global Challenge, where there's a lot of weather users, especially a lot of rain, a lot of sun, a lot of Dindozo. I beat every single Dindozo I played in the Grand Challenge, except for the one person who didn't bring Dondozo into me, and they got me with that, which I don't know how you look at this team, these 6 Pokemon, and don't bring Dondozo. It looks like the easiest Dondozo break ever, but they you know that they are smarter than I was. But I think I went 4-0 against people who actually brought Dondozo into me, which is a little surprising because I thought the Dondozo matchup was a little shaky, and especially in open team sheet, I would call it a little shaky. But I managed to beat all of them. So that was Hydreigon did its job. It beat Dozo, and that was the one thing it had to do. So it did its job. Yeah. So let's talk about the way you play the team. So Serperior was my least brought Pokemon in the Grand Challenge, despite being one of the most common Pokemon in testing on the best of 1 ladder. You set up screens, and then usually what I'll do is I'll either lead Serperior with Ursaluna or Hydreigon or Ceruledge. Ursaluna being the best one, Ceruledge into some teams where you can set up a little more effectively. And then Hydreigon, I ended up pivoting to that as my rain lead. In the past, I had led Ursaluna a little more into rain and went for Blood Moon into Pelipper, Light Screen, and then Vacuum Wave it to get rid of its Sash. And you can Terra Ghost to get rid of the and you can Terra Ghost to avoid a body press, because let's be real, if you lead Serperior or Ursaluna, they don't actually have a profitable way to Electroshot, and they should be a little scared of you Earth Powering. So it puts a lot of uncertainty into them. I feel like it didn't end up, like I said, but people started leading Basket Legion into me. That was when I realized that I can't actually do this lead as effectively. And so I think Rain players got a little better but yeah, so Serperior, that was my Serperior leads. And then I felt like I had Indeedee, Sneasler in back almost always when I'd lead Serperior because of how effective the Sneasler was with the Light Screen and the Psychic Seed boost. I thought it was a great way to clean up games. And yeah, that was probably my most common mode in practice, was Serperior Ursaluna or Serperior Ceruledge with Indeedee Sneasler in back. It covers a lot of matchups. And then the other common lead was, especially if it didn't have a Rillaboom, I felt very emboldened to lead Indeedee either with whatever setup mon you want, right? Like at the end of the day, the core of this team is it's got screens, it's got redirection, and it's got 3 different setup Pokemon. And so the team, people look at it and just like, this is such a weird team. This is so wacky. Like, it actually is pretty straightforward. It's screens. It's got the bulkiest mon in the biggest stat ball in the format in Ursaluna, and it's got 3 setup Pokemon with 3 direction. It's actually not all that weird. It's pretty easy to figure out once you start looking at it a little more closely and you can textualize it in that way. So yeah, so I would lead Indeedee with Ceruledge quite often, or Ursaluna quite often, and then again Sneasler in back quite often. Or you can just lead Indeedee Sneasler into some teams, especially if they want to lead a little more passively. You can just click Swords Dance on them and do quite well into a lot of those leads. And so calling them out, especially if they have like speed control, but they aren't actually faster than your Sneasler in Psychic Terrain, then you can take advantage of that as well. And you get to ignore the Talonflame because they can't Brave Bird you, and if they want to Will-O-Wisp you, they're threatening Will-O-Wisping into your Indeedee, so you get to protect turn 1 and they taunt you, and then you start hitting them really hard with the other slot, and then you redirect the Will-O-Wisp and it says, it's so good, you can, yeah. So that was like that was something else that was good. I don't know. That was the other common mode, I guess. Yeah, I guess that's basically it, right? It's not actually like all that uncommon. The main thing I'll say is that into Dondozo, I would bring Indeedee, Hydreigon in back, and then the front mons really were based on what mons they had as the threatening guys. If you can justify Serperior, then it's quite good because setting up a screen makes it a lot easier to deal with Dondozo. But if they have like the Talonflame thing that Agati, for example, used to win a Victory Road Tour, get second at a Victory Road Tour, second place, yeah. Then in that situation, you can't really lead Serperior into like Talonflame Dragonite. That's not going to work very well, right? And same with like Terra Steel Gold Dengo. You don't want to have to Terra your Serperior because you really want to have to Terra your Hydreigon in the matchup. And so other times I would just lead Ursaluna. Sometimes you can lead your own Indeedee, and but you do have to protect it because you do have to keep it alive to protect the Hydreigon for at least one turn as you get the focus energy off, right? So that came up. Getting a Glare off into Dondozo is also quite good. Ceruledge, obviously not nearly as common into Dondozo teams, but again, it's all contextual. It's all based on what their partners are doing, how they're trying to threaten you on lead. Yeah, so it's all based on that, right? And so yeah, I don't know if there's, let's see what else. Into Volcarona teams, into Typhlosion teams, Ceruledge is very important. What I would do into Typhlosion was oftentimes they lead Whimsicott Typhlosion or Talonflame Typhlosion, or The Murkrow Typhlosion's a little murkier, I guess, because they can foul play you. I had one player just Eruption foul play the slot that I switched Ceruledge into, and Ceruledge went down. But I would lead Ursaluna and Indeedee because they have the Terra Fire if they want to pick up the KO with Eruption. And then you can burn their Terra, and you can switch into Ceruledge, and ideally you can just wall them. They don't do anything to you, and then they have to switch out, and then you just kind of win the game from there. The smarter Typhlosion players would bring it in back, and so again, it's just a matter of keeping the right Pokemon around. Either Ceruledge, keep it around to wall it, or Hydreigon in the end game can sometimes deal with it, or Sneasler in the end game can sometimes deal with it. Ursaluna was not really good enough to deal with it a lot of the time because they just still overpower it, but yeah, so against Typhlosion, Ceruledge is super, super key. Same with Volcarona. If you don't bring Ceruledge into Volcarona, you can kind of get run over. So you have to bring it, and you have to keep it around, and you have to play very smartly with it. What else is there? Against Psyspam, again, Terra Dark Ceruledge, very good. Hydreigon, very good. Set up screens, and Ursaluna can put in a lot of work. You got a lot of tools against Psyspam. The main thing to look out for is the Gallade can be very annoying. They can Sacred Sword through your defense boost with Bulk Up. So figuring out how to beat the Gallade is probably the most important thing, and surviving Trick Room. Again, that's a place where you can maybe Terra Grass the Indeedee potentially to survive Trick Room. You can use the Hydreigon, and if they have Ursaluna, you have to switch in and out with your Hydreigon and try to bait some moves out that way and protect very smartly and play some mind games. And even the trickier Psyspam matchups, I thought I played a lot of Psyspam, and I beat almost all the Psyspam that I played. You have a lot of tools against Psyspam on this team, which I really like. I think that was really important in a grand challenge, just because everyone loves Dondozo, Psyspam, Mouseape, right? Having reliable answers to those guys in a grand challenge is so valuable. Rain, again, I thought my matchup was really good in practice, and then in the grand challenge itself, I had to sort of adjust on the fly. But the bad matchup is Ursaluna Balance. P2, Incin, Shroom, Ursaluna was very tricky. And it's a lot trickier if they see your team sheet and they realize you don't have goggles and they know exactly what to play around. But the way I see it, that team is so much worse in closed team sheet because you don't know where the safety goggles is. You don't know where the clear amulet is. You don't know where the Terra Grass is, right? You don't know all those things. And so do you know where the Terra Steel is? Maybe it's Terra Steel Dondozo and your Clear Smog isn't doing anything, right? Stuff like that is so hard to play around. And so if you're playing that type of team, obviously it did win the Grand Challenge. You saw Nails' team report where he won the Grand Challenge with a team like that. So good players pilot it very well, but you have to play very conservatively with it, I think. You have to and as a result, my approach was, one, I'm going to see less of it than I am this other stuff, and I could take some losses if I need to. But two, I can play very disrespectfully because my opponent has to play very conservatively. And they don't know if I have safety goggles on my Indeedee. And they don't know if I have Terra Grass on my Ceruledge. And so they have to play around all that stuff. And I can be a little disrespectful. And so if I lead Indeedee Ceruledge, for example, which I think is my most common lead into balance, I will just click Protect Bulk Up. And what are they going to do? Leave their Amoonguss in front of Indeedee Ceruledge? Right? No shot they're leaving it in. They're protecting it. They're switching it out. They're Terraing it, and you're burning their Terra, and you can take advantage of that. Right? And I'm getting a Bulk Up off so consistently. And they're knocking off the Indeedee because it's the most profitable thing to knock off. But then you're just protecting on it, and it's you got to disrespect them a little bit. You got to force them to make reads because they don't want to make reads. They want to play super conservatively. Think about the type of person. Think about your best friend who brings Ursaluna P2 Balance to the global challenge, right? How are they going to play their team? So that was my approach. It was a bad matchup in open team sheet for sure. It was probably still a bad matchup in closed team sheet. But if you just disrespect them a little bit and you're willing to play really aggressively, that's how you win against that team. Yeah, I think that acknowledging your bad matchups and knowing how to play against your bad matchups, and especially in best of one, is really, really important, and you can overcome them. And I think I went 2-1 against Ursaluna Balance, which again, it was a lot less common than it was at Baltimore Regionals, at the locals that I attended, and so that's why I think this team doesn't really translate as well to open team sheet best of 3 when the texts don't quite work. But it's not a team that's built for that. It was built for best of 1, and it had a good enough matchup into Ursaluna P2 Balance that you can leverage it and you can salvage your matchup, and you can win by outplaying them and leveraging your Terra Steel Hydreigon into their Ursaluna, and you play disrespectfully around their Amoonguss, and you can side glare with your Serperior to stop them from sporing you if you really need to, or stuff like that. You have all these little tricks and techs that you can use to try to beat them, and they only have one chance at it. So that was my thought into that's pretty much my matchup spread. Overall, I think I had a really, really good matchup spread, and I think honestly, I tossed some games that I wasn't supposed to. Like I said, the foul play, Murkrow, Okoing Ceruledge, I was like, wait a second, that Oko's? I had not seen that before. They had a really smart play. I lost a game on a disconnect that I think I was in a really good spot against Alessio, and I lost a lot of points off that. I got best of one, of course, a couple times too, and I got outplayed a lot. But yeah, no, I mean, and I had a couple games where I didn't really fully appreciate how bulky some of my Pokemon were, and I should have played differently, or I didn't appreciate that people would play around, protect on Sneasler, and I should have played more disrespectfully. But also, I had some games where I read my opponents really well, or I got the Dire Claw turns, and I got, the second to last game that I played, I think was against Genius, a European player, and I clicked Glare into Sneasler, and I could Glare into Primarina, and then I clicked Dire Claw into the Rillaboom, and it missed the KO, but I got a sleep on it, and I was like, okay, I got a full Para when I needed it against Primarina, but yeah, you're also going to get lucky, and you're going to get unlucky over the course of 45 games, and you just have to, accept it, and, again, you just have to accept that luck is going to come and go, and playing a team that can get lucky is also really valuable, right? You click Glare, you click Dire Claw. You have a lot of ways. You have Scope Lens on Hydreigon, and you don't click Focus Energy all the time, so you just get your crits sometimes. You can just have favorable luck at times with this team. I think you build your own luck. This team can also get unlucky because Leaf Storm can miss, and Draco can miss, and you are just screwed. And for what it's worth, I missed one Leaf Storm and one Draco Meteor in the entire 45 games. So overall, I think I probably got the favorable end of the luck, I think. But I also had some really bad luck in some games too. So I don't know. I think it evens out over the course of the tournament. I had a game. This was I posted this on Twitter. I'll pull it back up. I had a game. I went 19-1 to start out. Really, really strong start. And then I went to 20-6. So I went 1-5. And the game after that, which would have been 20-7, my opponent hurricanes my Ursaluna, and they confused it, and I hit itself in confusion when I really wanted to Oko something, and I was just like, oh, that's going to be the game. And then I hit myself in confusion again after I had clawed my way back into the game, and it was just like, oh, I'm going to lose now. But I found an out, which is they made one bad play, and they gave me a turn to Dire Claw, and I was like, okay, if I Dire Claw this Pokemon and I get a paralysis or a sleep, my Ursaluna will outspeed it, and I will take the knockout, and I will win the game. And what do you know? I got the paralysis, and I avoided tilting off the face of the earth. And so, it, again, like I said, it all does even out. And so, yeah, this is a cool team. I want you to try it out. This team is really, really fun. It was really, really fun to use. I rambled for a long time, but I really have put basically a month of effort into this team, and it's one of the more creative teams that I've built. Like I said, I love the grand challenges because I get to kind of flex my creative team building muscles and try out some cool Pokemon that you wouldn't otherwise see, use some creative game plans that you wouldn't otherwise get to cook up with, and yeah, it was really fun. It was really, really fun. And so again, I got this. I do want to say a lot of these ideas I got from other people that I just the Serperior set I got from Jamie Boyd's YouTube video. The Ursaluna set I got from whoever was number one on the best of one ladder. And now this is the most common Ursaluna set now. Nails won the GC with it. I did really well. We have 2 team reports on it now, so I'm gonna call it the Tub Ursaluna set. We can't really take credit for it, but we're the ones who have popularized it now, so I get to take credit for it, I guess, a little bit. The Sneasler set I got from Niku Alex, who, funnily enough, my very last game of the tournament was against Alessio, and I beat him. And it's funny that I got the Sneasler set from him, and then I beat him in the very last game. So yeah, that was pretty funny. And then the rest of it, I guess, I kind of put together myself. But the Ceruledge, again, was a holdover from a team that Rajan and I built together, and I think that was Rajan's idea back in Reg E. So yeah, just a whole team effort. And honestly, the one Pokemon that I wasn't really a team effort was Indeedee, and I messed up the EV spread anyways. So yeah, thanks to all my friends for helping me out and encouraging me throughout the global challenge, and commiserating with me when I when I when I didn't quite do as well as I would have hoped. Yeah, thank you all for watching. This was a fun team, and yeah, I hope you guys try it out. Rental code on screen, paste in the description. Shout out to Tub Nation. Shout out to my channel members. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, I'll see you all later.